All right, let's get it going. What's going on? Just gonna have a quick chat here. We are in Northern Ontario. I think we're near Bancroft, Ontario right now at a cottage with a few friends. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's enjoying their fall. We're getting into the thick of the colder weather now. As you can tell, I'm in sweatpants and a hoodie and flannel because it ain't that warm outside anymore. But I thought this was a very nice landscape and a very nice place for me to talk about the topic I want to talk in today's video, which is longevity as a content creator. Whether you work in sports, whether you work in fashion, YouTube, filmmaking, whatever you do in this creative space, I think longevity is a topic not a lot of people talk about. And so that's something I want to discuss and just ramble on a little bit more today. Today's not that much of a structured video. I kind of just want to talk about something I've learned over the last 6 or 7, 8 months about lasting long in this career, avoiding burnout. And part of it has to do with being at a place like this, at a beautiful Muskoka area cottage, Bancroft area cottage with a lot of my closest friends, is unwinding and relaxing and taking this time to kind of reflect on how I got here, but also how I want to continue my career without hitting a wall, burning out, being tired all the time. Because if I'm being honest, a lot of people kind of glamorize the life of a content creator. And to be totally fair, there's a very good reason for that. You get to do a lot of incredible things. Your job is capturing and creating visual content, which is, in my opinion, a lot more exciting and more fulfilling than for me it would be a full-time 9-to-5 job. And especially for me working in sports, I get to do a lot of really incredible things. I get to go to events like the Stanley Cup Final. I get to shoot hockey and sports at the highest level. I get to travel for work, things that a lot of people wish to do, and I'm very privileged and thankful to do. And I don't want this to come across as me being unthankful for having this career in this line of work. But what I will say is a lot of people normally don't get to see the other side of things when it comes to doing content creation, filmmaking, whatever you want to call it, at this high professional level. What people don't really talk about or showcase is the actual mental and physical stresses that this kind of work puts on your body. You know, traveling a lot of the time, for example, as cool as it is, spending a lot of time on planes isn't really good for both your physical and your mental health, especially if you're doing a lot of long haul flights. I made a TikTok about this recently where people don't really see what happens in the behind the scenes or the after hours of being a content creator. Things like being up late at night, editing, working on your business, working on your craft, staring at a computer for 8 hours a day or however long you have to edit for. You're sitting at your desk a lot of the time, which isn't good for your physical health. You know, there are so many different things. And even when it comes to meeting deadlines, you know, client requests, client revisions, you know, having a lot of things on your plate all at once. These are things that we all struggle with as content creators, but no one really talks about, no one really highlights, because it's not the sexy parts of the job that you want to showcase. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that as fun as this career path is, there are a lot of things that can really quickly wear you out, and a lot of things that you will impact how long you can do this for as a career. And, you know, judging by how long I've been doing this now, 6 or 7 years now, I want to be able to do this later into my 30s, you know, for as long as I can, because this is what I love to do in life. This is my passion. But I learned very quickly over the last 6 or 7 months, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not putting in the effort to actively put yourself first, put your work away sometimes, or even adjust your life and, you know, your routine in order to make your work fit your lifestyle, you're going to struggle doing this later in life. Because I've definitely had major burnout in those last 7 years. I had a huge hit of major burnout 2 years ago. And, you know, at the halfway point of this year, I was definitely feeling the mental stresses of having to meet a lot of deadlines and having to, you know, handle a lot of things on my full-time job and then on my side gigs. You know, there's a lot that goes into this that can really wear you down. And if you're not careful, it can be a lot worse than just getting burnt out. I've seen people quite literally have to leave this career path because they just couldn't handle the stresses of it anymore. And I think in the last 8 months specifically, I've really dialed in a few things that I want to talk about today that have helped me increase, I think, the longevity of my career as long as I'm consistent and keep myself accountable to these specific things. Now, the thing I want to talk about first specifically is just focusing on taking care of your body and your mind. I think as content creators, we often think of this as a very mentally strenuous career, and it absolutely is. Like, it's not easy having to handle a lot of deadlines. You can get very anxious doing this line of work if you're not good with meeting deadlines. It's a skill you have to acquire, and you have to have a lot of mental strength as well to be able to push through a lot of exhaustion and late nights in order to meet those deadlines. And also, there's just a very tough feeling when it comes to learning something new that can be very stressful on your mind. And pushing through, trying to learn new skills and trying to become comfortable with being uncomfortable is something that I've had to do a lot of the time in my career. And that can really be something that's hard to overcome and can really take a lot of load on your mind. This is also a very strenuous career on your body as well. I kind of mentioned it before, but like we talk about me traveling all the time and being all these events. Traveling for the most part is actually incredibly cool and a lot of fun. I've gotten to see a lot of cool cities, been to a lot of cool events, but that's kind of when you're there. No one really talks about what it's like to travel a lot, being in the air and not being in your bed a lot of the time. And that's for me one of the biggest things is like, if you travel a lot for your career as a creative, you really have to make sure you have at least some routine dialed in. So when you get home from those trips, you're able to recover a lot faster. Because for me, flights, especially when they're more than 3 hours, take a huge toll on my body. It is not comfortable to sit on a plane. I am by no means flying first class when I'm in these situations where my schedule goes from arrive in X city, shoot the game, travel the next day, arrive, at this city, shoot the game, travel again. Like, it gets to be a lot. And so especially in the last number of months, I've made a huge focus not to just focus on the mental side of things, but also my physical recovery and my physical health as well, because I know when I get home from those events, I'm just absolutely exhausted, like definition of burnt out. I remember my first Stanley Cup final I ever did. Once I got home, I slept for like 14 straight hours because my body was just taxed, not just from the shooting, but from the consistent travel and moving around and not sleeping in your own bed. It's really things like this that not a lot of people think about when it comes into the physical stresses of this career path. And if I'm being truthful, like earlier this year, I was going through a moment where a lot of things in life weren't just really going my way. Life was definitely lifing, and my mental health was affected and my physical health was affected. And if your body can't keep up, your mental is going to suffer a lot more. So I've just learned a lot in the last 6 or 7 months about balancing both of them, making sure that I'm prioritizing the recovery of my physical health as well as much as my mental. Because I'm 27 years old. I want to be able to do this when I'm 35, 45 years old and come home and, whether I have kids and a family or with friends and other friends and family, be able to keep up with them and not be exhausted all the time, still have energy in my day in order to enjoy life to the fullest while still doing what I love to do. It would break my heart if I had to give up shooting sports and creating content because my body couldn't handle it. So really prioritizing both the mental and the physical and finding that balance has been a really important thing. And especially if you're young, if you're under 25, like, you're going to have a lot of energy. You're going to have way more ability to be kind of resilient to the physical and the mental side of things. But just make sure you're not pushing yourself to the limit of by the time you get past 25 or get to 30 years old where you're really, really struggling. I know a lot of people who have unfortunately had to give up this career path, and it really sucks to see. So for me, the priority is balancing both the physical and the mental stressors. And I'm going to talk about what I've kind of done in order to give myself that boost and also help me understand why longevity in this career line is important. And kind of everything I'm talking about is a really big reason as to why I said yes to a trip like this in the middle of the week. Now, that breeze came in and it's really cold. I was about to say the weather is really nice, and it is, apart from the cold breeze. Changing my environment is something I do a lot in order to stay fresh and stay sharp as a creative. It's a really small thing that you wouldn't consider important, but like for me, I'm sitting at my computer for like 6-7 hours a day editing, which is definitely not healthy. So one thing I like doing when I feel a little tired or a little stagnant at my desk is change environments. Now, you don't have to come to a cottage like this. Something as simple as going to a coffee shop, which I do all the time to get work and change environments, is actually really, really good for your kind of mental sharpness when it comes to a creative. But also, you're getting your body moving. You're actually like physically moving your body and taking a break. And so I'm really happy I get to take this opportunity to be in such a beautiful location and continue to do what I love doing, whether it's working for the NHL, creating content for you guys here on YouTube, just in a different environment is very, very refreshing, and it keeps me going. It's not just me sitting at my desk anymore. I get to do it in a new location, and that's always a fun experience for me and something that just keeps me awake and very thankful for what I get to do. Kyle, who's the first to die in a horror movie?
Because he goes running in the woods. Me, definitely.
Why? What do you not bring to the table here?
Because I need Wi-Fi. I need to do meetings.
Let's go.
Is a prerogative to have a little fun.
Now, the first strategy I've kind of adopted in order to have longevity in this career and avoid burnout and really just stay on my game all the time is staying active. And I know that's such a cliche thing, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking about clicking away right now, but hold on, just bear with me here. When it comes to staying active, like I said before, we don't take care of our bodies as much as content creators. We kind of assume that we're just sitting at a desk all day. How bad could it be? Like, trust me, when you're actively moving your body at least, 2 or 3 times a week minimum, you don't have to do it 5, 6, 7 days a week. Even just 2 days a week of doing something active will be a huge game changer for you in terms of your productivity and energy when it comes to creating content. And I'm also not going to tell you to go and hit the gym. Trust me, I actively hate the gym. Lifting weights, as good as it is for you in order to gain muscle and gain strength, mentally does nothing for me. And so I needed to find a physical outlet that also energized and engaged my mind. And for me, that was 2 things. Number 1, boxing, and number 2, running. And definitely before the new year, I wasn't exercising really at all or too frequently. I didn't let myself go. I was still in decent shape, but I wasn't moving my body enough. And I found myself being tired all the time, really, drowsy. And when I made that change of just even doing boxing twice a week, which is what I'm doing right now, I go boxing twice a week, even just that small change for me of doing something active twice a week has given me a lot more energy. I have something to look forward to in the mornings that sets me up really well for the rest of my day. And also, if you happen to be really stressed the day or the night before, there's nothing like releasing some of the energy on a bag the next morning by punching it. And for me, the second thing has been running. And a lot of people will say they hate running, and I was 100% one of those people at the start. I hated running. I couldn't run more than a kilometer without, feeling out of breath or my knees absolutely killing me. But now at this point, after running consistently and properly now for 6 months, I'm about to do my first half marathon, which is something I never thought I would actually do. And yes, I know everyone in their mid-20s right now is running. I will totally own that stereotype, but I will say getting into that routine of running 3 or 4 times a week in the mornings plus boxing twice a week in the mornings has, number 1, taught me a lot of discipline in terms of like being consistent in moving my body. And in that consistency, you also learn accountability, 2 skills that completely translate over to your content creation. Because let's be honest, when you are creating content for things like YouTube or a full-time job, you need to be adhering to a consistent schedule, and that takes a lot of accountability. That takes a lot of discipline. So not only am I moving my body and actively starting my day in a good way by being active in the mornings or at whatever point in the day, it can be at night if you prefer that, but it's also teaching me skills that I'm applying directly to my content creation. Now, I'm not telling you to start running marathons. I'm not telling you to start boxing, but find something movement-wise that you can do twice a week to activate your body, activate your mind in a different way, and also something that can give you a break from the work that you have to do. I know when I'm on a run, when I'm boxing, I'm not thinking about the content I have to make, and it's kind of a stress reliever. Oddly enough, it's very therapeutic. So if you're someone who isn't really moving their body a lot, this doesn't have to be a crazy lift. It can be as simple as going for even a 30-minute walk. Move your body at least twice a week, and believe me, you're going to find yourself having a lot more energy. You're going to be a lot more disciplined, and you're just going to be able to feel like you can tackle anything. Anytime I go for a really difficult run or a hard boxing session in the morning, I feel like I can tackle anything that comes my way that day. So also, when you work with professional athletes or athletes of any kind in the sports world, it's a lot easier to relate to what they have to go through, and I think that's impacted me as a storyteller. Understanding the grind of having to wake up early in the morning, putting your body through a lot of stress and, physical exertion in order to get better at something. I just tend to understand what athletes are going through a little bit more. Obviously not to the highest level that we see them do on television and whatnot, but I feel like I relate a lot more to the people I'm capturing, the stories I'm trying to tell, and it's giving me a whole different perspective on how to tell those stories and how to capture those actions and those specific moments when I'm shooting a hockey game or when I'm shooting a runner or when I'm shooting a boxing athlete. So this will also open up a lot of avenues, in my opinion, for you to understand a different perspective on the stories and the content you want to tell and that you want to capture. The most stylish man in the north.
Nicole Shapiro, first of her name.
Okay.
Red of hair.
Clifford the big red dog.
From the kingdom of Etobicoke. Yeah, from the kingdom of Etobicoke.
So riffing off of what I was just saying when it comes to physical activity and moving your body, part of that is developing a routine. And I think Developing a routine is a really important part of achieving longevity in this creative space because, let's be honest, a lot of our days as content creators are very different no matter what. Whether you work in sports, whether you work in YouTube full time, a lot of your days and weeks are never really going to look the same. You may have weeks where you're absolutely slammed with work, and you may have weeks where you're not really working at all and you're kind of trying to fill the time. And that in on its own, not having a consistent routine can be really, really tough to go through, especially when it comes to your mental health and staying organized, staying on top of things. So keeping a consistent routine is one of the most important things I've done in the last 6 to 8 months in order to keep myself at a good mental state and a good energy state while creating content and working in this industry. Whether it's been running and waking up at a certain time 3 days a week to go on a run, or like I said, doing boxing 2 days a week, or even things like having a day off, like a specific day in the week where you know you're not working at all and you're taking for yourself, or days that you're spending as purely social days with family or friends. Having as much of a consistent routine as possible is the most important thing for your body and your mind to feel comfortable in this line of work, because I think when you have a 9-to-5 job in the comparison side of things, like, you're able to have those consistent sleep hours, you're able to have those consistent social hours because you know you're clocking into work from 9 to 5 and everything after, you know what you're doing. Versus in my line of work, for example, I may be here all of 1 week working in the evenings like I normally do, but then I might be traveling the next week to 3 different places for 3 different hockey games or something along those lines, and my routine is thrown off whack. And obviously when you are in those situations of traveling or having your routine messed up, keeping a lot of those consistencies while you're on the road is obviously really important. But I think in terms of the longevity of your career, keeping a consistent routine is one of the most underrated things you can do. And again, it doesn't have to be a full week, 7-day calendar that you built up, but just having a few things every single week that stay consistent will help you a ton in the long run. I'm kind of glad that all these points are giving me kind of seamless transitions to riff off, and I didn't really plan that, but we're just going to go ahead with it anyways. But kind of coming on from the topic of routine, I'm going to go into the concept of organization and why that's important for longevity in this career is because it's taking a lot of mental stress off of you to be organized, whether it's in your file structure, your calendar, your day-to-day. Being organized and having something that keeps you in line with what you have to do is going to take so much stress off your body and mind. And stress is going to be the number one thing that burns you out in this career path. So you can kind of see where I'm going here in terms of why it's important. For me, the biggest thing has been learning to use a calendar, whether it's a physical one or an online one. Having a calendar where everything sits and I can at a glance understand what I have to do in a day, in a week, or in a month has been a huge lifesaver for me, because I absolutely used to be one of those people who just kind of made a plan or talked to a client and had a deadline and just put it in the memory bank of my head. And then 2 days later, I completely forget about it. And then I'm stressing out because I triple booked myself between that client, hang out with my friends or my family, and some other third, probably other commitment. And I unfortunately have to say no to 2 out of those 3. And unfortunately, a lot of the time it's your family and friends that take the hit, and you really don't want to do that too much because people can only be so understanding. But ever since I forced myself to use my Google Calendar religiously, it's been a huge time saver and a huge stress saver for me in my life, just understanding what I'm doing in a day or in a week ahead of time. As soon as something hits your calendar, you know it's there, and the stress of not only double booking yourself goes away, but understanding also when your deliverables are due. Because for me, whenever I have a shoot day, I put that in my calendar, and I also put the day the deliverables due so it doesn't sneak up on me. It took me way too long to get comfortable with just putting shit in a calendar or in a to-do list in order to stay organized. I kind of always went by the seat of my pants and trying to remember it. But especially when you get into the later stages of your career, when you get a lot busier with, you know, your full-time job, your YouTube content, etc., you will forget about things. You're only human. So for me, having an organized calendar has been a huge weight off my shoulders. And I think in the long run is something that's going to allow me to do this for a long time, because I'm not stressing about the shoot I forgot about 3 weeks from now. I can prepare. I'm ready to go. And I know a lot of people who take this way into an extreme, but it really is as simple as just throwing the important things in your calendar and building it out around you. Organization can also go for things like file organization, proper file management. And that's a whole other maybe video in on its own, because again, something I've been working on the last few years, but being able to make sure your content and the videos you shoot, whether they're for yourself or for your clients, are easy to access and find, is going to save you a lot of time. And if you guys know anything about me, I stress out that time is the most important resource we have as content creators.
The way the car sunk back down, you got us.
This is Caliente rig car driving services for all your camera needs.
We're testing the
Blazar anamorphic lenses, the Remus lenses, and the element filter, NDs, and
Oh, tricky. So you might be wondering at this point of the video why I changed outfits. It's because this is the next day, and after interviewing a few people tomorrow and shooting the first part of this video, I decided it was time to relax and actually enjoy my, little mini vacation getaway here. But to continue on to this topic about longevity as a creator and as a creative individual, the main thing I want to talk about in this part of the video has now come into like the actual self-care part of things. And I talked a lot about working out and, being active, but a really big thing that genuinely not a lot of creatives talk about is getting enough sleep. And sleep is one of the most important things I've realized in my life that has helped me become not just a better creator, but someone who's consistently being able to come up with creative ideas, someone who's consistently on the ball. I'm less groggy. Getting proper sleep for me has been an absolute game changer, and keeping track of my sleep and understanding how much I need in order to be efficient, in order to be able to function on a daily basis is one of the most important things. Because let's be honest, if you're waking up and you're exhausted and you don't want to be in front of the camera, you're not going to be able to create good videos. Or if you don't want to go out and shoot a sports game or whatever, like, you need energy to do that. You need to take care of your body and make sure you're recovering enough, especially when, like I keep saying in this video, this career path can take a lot out of you. And if you're traveling a lot, if you're creating a lot of content consistently and you're not getting enough sleep, it's going to catch up to you, and that'll be the main cause as to why you crash out doing this. And so making sure and holding myself accountable to get enough sleep has been a huge game changer. Even if it's getting something like 6 or 7 hours, you don't always need to get 8, nor will you always be able to get 8. But even just making sure I'm getting minimum 6 to 7 hours has been a huge lift on how I feel emotionally, physically the next day whenever I need to go out and shoot. Going into days where you're going to have a packed schedule, making sure you get enough sleep the night before is one of the most important things I find in order to be consistent and be a well-rounded creator in this space. I'm not gonna lie, before I actually kept track of my sleep, I'm pretty sure I was averaging in and around like 4 to 5 hours a day. And that's not really enough. Like, I would be going to bed at like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then I'd be waking up at like 9 and 10 thinking I got enough sleep. But in reality, I'm probably getting only 3 hours of solid sleep. And it wasn't really until I started tracking my sleep and holding myself accountable and, making sure I'm in bed at a certain time, my screens are off, and I'm ready to shut down and actually rest has been a huge game changer for me. Because when those 3 to 4 hours of sleep jumped up to getting, in and around 6 to 7 hours, or even on occasion 8 hours of sleep, my productivity skyrocketed, my creativity skyrocketed as well. And overall, my energy throughout a day to be working those long hours, to be out and about shooting those games where you're taking a lot of walking time, you're gaining a lot of steps in those cases. Or even when I'm shooting videos like this, where I'm not super exhausted in front of the camera, where I actually have the energy to talk to you here. I think yesterday, by the time I was finished recording some interviews for this video, I was exhausted. And if I just started talking to the camera with that energy level, I wouldn't be able to get the message across the way I wanted to, because I want this video to have meaning. And if I'm not really there physically or mentally, then there's no point in me doing it. So what did I do? I ended up saying, hey, you know what? I'm gonna relax for the rest of the night. Last night, got 7 hours of sleep, woke up, and I'm feeling a lot better to continue making this video. So just make sure you are getting enough sleep. And I know as creatives, we're all very night owl style people. We like to stay up late, we like to edit late, but if that's the case, make sure you're sleeping in enough the next day to get those hours of sleep back, or just, slowly dial back how late you're staying up. I know in sports, obviously you work late at night, but if I have an evening where I know I can go to bed at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, I'm going to choose that now instead of going to bed at 2, 3, 4 in the morning because I have to edit. And I think the main way I've been able to keep myself accountable, and this is in no way a sponsored video, but having this guy, the Whoop, has been a really good way for me to track my sleep. And it doesn't have to be the Whoop. It can be your Apple Watch. It could be an Oura Ring. It can be whatever kind of wearable. At least that's what works for me, because this is holding me accountable to get my proper sleep. And it's telling me this. The cool thing about this is actually it also tells you when you should go to bed, depending on how much sleep you want to get or how much sleep you need. And really getting something like this has been a huge game changer for me for being accountable and also tracking my sleep efficiently. And that's when I kind of realized, like, when you aren't getting enough sleep, you're definitely not feeling your best. So whether it's this, or you manually track it on like a sheet of paper and you just keep an eye on when you're going to bed and when you're waking up, stuff like that really brings things into perspective and really makes you think like, wow, I'm actually not living a very healthy lifestyle. But to wrap this part up, just make sure as a creative, if you want longevity in this, in this career path, sleep should always be a priority. Even if you have a late night, make sure you're getting enough sleep the next day, because if you're not getting enough sleep, you're inevitably going to crash out and burn. So just make sure you are getting your hours in bed. Make sure you're putting those screens away. I can't actually emphasize how important sleep has been for me, especially over the last few months, to improve as a content creator, to have more clarity, and just to be more efficient altogether. If you guys are actually interested in looking at a Whoop to improve your lifestyle, again, not a sponsored video, but this is just something I recommend because I really use it. And it's interesting because I know this is tailored towards athletes, but I think creative individuals can benefit so much from having a device like this that kind of not just gives you your sleep readout, but allows you to understand your health at a baseline a lot more, from the amount of work and strain you're putting on your body, how recovered you are to do the next day. This has been a really interesting piece of technology for me. I might even make a video on this one day as to why this is the most important piece of tech I've bought in 2024 as a creator. But if you guys want to check it out, I'll leave a link down in the description below for you guys to, take a look at it. And if you use that link, you can get a free month. But again, not a sponsored video. I just truly do think this is a great product that I've enjoyed using now for several months. Now, I know if you work in this creative field, your work essentially becomes an extension of your life, or kind of becomes your life in general. Look at me right now. I'm sitting at a cottage making a YouTube video where I can instead be relaxing and doing nothing at all and actually recovering from the busy work weeks I've had over the last few weeks. And the point I want to make here is sometimes you have to put away and get away from your creative work and actually enjoy your life apart from it. And I know that's really difficult. One of the best things you can do to ensure longevity is making sure you are setting specific days or times where you're putting your camera away, you're putting your editing away, you're doing something else that isn't creative work. Because sometimes taking those hours, 1 or 2 hours away from the camera, away from the edit bay, are the ways you refresh your brain and give your creative mind a break in order to come up with new ideas. Do something else to distract you. Do something else to put your brain at ease and give you something for a couple of hours to try to take you away from your work. And oftentimes I find when I'm doing something that isn't work related, that's where I get a lot of inspiration for my work in sports and away from sports as well. I feel like a lot of the time we're in this funnel of YouTube and content creators who say, if you're not grinding 24/7, if you're not making stuff every single minute of every single day, you're going to fall behind. I think that's a very unhealthy mindset to have. I think that's a very toxic mindset to have. And at the end of the day, if you take your time to unwind and disconnect from your work, even for a few hours, you're going to have much better results compared to if you were just slaving away at your computer 24/7, 7 days a week. Spend time with your friends and family. That is such an underrated thing that I think improves you as a creative as well, is spending time with your loved ones, especially in parts of your career where you're going to be traveling a lot, you're going to be creating a lot of, content on the road. Take time and hang out with your friends and your family, kind of just how I've been doing at this cottage here. We've all made time to come down here and enjoy the beautiful fall weather, the great vibes of the cottage. Take your time away from the camera, put it down, put it in the closet, put your laptop away, and do something that helps you escape your creative work, because your career, your video that you shot, the edit you have to do, it's not going away if you put it away for an hour, and you're going to see a lot of personal growth and also just potential health benefits from just taking your time away from your work whenever you can. All right, last topic I want to talk about here is one that is something I think a lot of people should adopt, and that is saying no. I feel like a lot of the times as creative individuals, we tend to say yes to a lot of things because we get FOMO. We feel like if an opportunity is too good to pass up, it'll never come again. There's a lot of reasons why I think as creatives, we say yes a lot. And I've experienced it, especially literally a few weeks ago. I said yes to a lot in August. And when September rolled around, I completely got shafted with so many deadlines and so many things. It felt like once I was getting one thing off my to-do list, 5 other things would take its place. And I really wished in that scenario, I said no to a few of those things. And I ended up finding myself saying no to a lot of things in September and October. I'm realizing my body is turning away from the boat. So I'm going to readjust here before I continue. Saying no is something that I've learned that you have to be very picky and selective with what you say yes to in terms of job opportunities, in terms of collaborations with brands or friends, because you only have so much of a battery to create content, to do this kind of work. And especially when, like me, you have a full-time job, you have a lot of responsibilities, you're on a boat trying to do this. I should have said no to this. Someone should have told me no, because this is taking a lot of mental work. Really understanding how to say no, I think, is way more important for the longevity and length of your career as a creative than saying yes. I think we all fear that if we don't say yes to a certain opportunity, it's gonna come and go and we'll never see it again. But in my experience and seeing a lot of my friends go through this, sometimes saying no actually opens the door for opportunities you'd much rather have versus you saying yes to some random shoot or opportunity and then something else better comes along and you can't do it because you've already committed to one thing. And also that whole thing of saying no doesn't just go for jobs, but it also goes for, you know, making time for you. Obviously, I love hanging out with my friends, and I just did a whole point of why it's important to be with your friends and family, but sometimes you got to say no to them too to make sure you have time for you. So no matter if it's work, life, creative, you know, freelance work, your own personal projects, saying no sometimes is the best thing you can do in order to make a lot more of those yeses happen in the future. One thing I want to add to saying yes to gigs is that you don't have to say yes to them just because they pay well. Just because you might be making a good chunk of money from it doesn't mean it's going to further your career. In some cases, I'd much rather say yes to an opportunity that might not be paid, but might open a lot more doors for me in the future, might connect me with more people. So it's not always about just saying no, but being more selective and picky as to what you're saying yes to. So, you know, even though you may be tough for money and you want to take one opportunity, I think that you're much better off in analyzing and seeing how does this benefit my career? How does this benefit my growth in this industry, and make the decision from there. I'm going to continue paddling away to my final shot. This is where I cue the Pirates of the Caribbean theme. At the end of the day, I know I rambled a ton in this video and I apologize for that, but I'm also not apologizing because the whole point of this video is trying to help you guys understand from the mistakes I made early on and even more recently in my career by saying yes to too many things, not focusing on my physical and mental health, and really not thinking about the future and thinking 10 steps ahead or a year ahead or 4 or 5 years ahead, how I want to feel, how I want to be able to carry my career from now on. So hopefully in this video, you guys took something away from myself about just making sure you last a long time in this career path. This is something that I love doing. I want to be doing into my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and I want to be able to one day say, hey, I was able to do all of that without giving up, without burning out, without, you know, completely deteriorating my mind and my body. So whether you've been doing this for 6 months, a year, or 10 years, do yourself a favor and just ask yourself, how can I make sure I maintain this course of content creation, production, high level, you know, creativity without completely throwing yourself off the deep end and making sure you last the length of time you want in this career. And with that all being said, I am now going to get back on this boat and figure out how to get back to shore safely and without getting my body wet, because this water is very cold. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like down below. And if you guys didn't enjoy the video, at least give it a like for the fact that I boated all the way out here to this platform for the outro shot. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are new here, please subscribe. I would really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to head back to shore. I'll catch you guys later. Oh. This is where I play I'm on a boat by Lonely Island. I'm on a boat.